Project Hero, and it's gaining ground in universities right across the country. And the idea is pretty simple. What happens is that a university signs on to this program, and the tuition fees for the children of those who have been killed in action, the tuition fees are waived, and so for the normal course of an undergraduate degree. It was the brainchild of two people. One was retired General Rick Hillier. The other was a guest who's going to join us in a minute, Kevin Reed, who's the executive director of the project. But this plan has come under severe attack from 16 university professors at the University of Regina, one of the universities that had signed up to be part of Project Hero. Now, they had sent a letter to the university and released it publicly. I just want to read you some excerpts of what these professors said. They called this program, they said, it is a glorification of Canadian imperialism in Afghanistan and elsewhere. We do not want our university associated with the political impulse to unquestioning glorification of military action. They go on to say in another part, in signing on to Project Hero, the university is implicated in the disturbing construction of the war in Afghanistan by Western military and state elites as the good war of our epoch. We insist that our university not be connected with the increasing militarization of Canadian society and politics. And they finally end up by saying this. We are calling on the University of Regina administration to hold a public forum on the war in Afghanistan and Canadian imperialism more generally, at which the issues we raise can be debated. Well, let's go to one of those people who wrote that letter, or at least signed that letter. Joining us from Regina is Garson Hunter. He's the associate professor at the University of Regina in the Faculty of Social Work. And Professor Hunter, thanks very much for being with us. Can you just explain, first of all, what you mean by Canadian imperialism and why it is that that has crept into the language at this point?
Sure, I think I can do that by looking through Project Hero. When I first saw it, I was a little taken aback. I couldn't imagine that the Canadian Forces didn't have a program for the dependents of killed service people, Afghanistan or elsewhere. So I did a little digging up, and in fact, we do have legislation. It's called the Children of Deceased Veterans Education Assistance Act, Chapter C-28. My latest copy is published March 5th, 2010. And in fact, that act provides for tuition for children of deceased veterans. It provides for the university education.
Fair enough, Professor, but nowhere in your...
allows for their allowance.
Hang on a second.
Allowance for
Hang
them.
on a second.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. But listen, nowhere in your letter do you mention that. What you talk about in this letter that you have signed on to is the fact that this is glorification of what you call Canadian imperialism.
Yes.
We're not looking anywhere in this letter at another competing program or anything like that. So the base of your concern, presumably, is more about the politics of this rather than the logistics of where programs are. And I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about the fact that you feel that by giving money to the children of soldiers who have died in an active theater of war is a despicable thing.
Sure, because they're not giving money. What I want to say is that there is already a government program that pays for the tuition. So what is Project Hero about? That's what I'm saying.
Well, wait a second. What's your letter about then? Because you're talking about Canadian imperialism and how we're signing on to it. You're not mentioning in the letter about a dual or competing program. So talk to the base of your concerns here. It's not that there's a competing program. It's that you don't like the politics of this.
It's not even a competing program. It's a program that exists by legislation of Canada. It's brought in under this moniker of Project Hero, which really ends up being a benefit of minimal to these people. I'm concerned about and the embarrassment, for example, the Canadian Forces, that they don't provide services for their people. I think people should be concerned about that. I think people should be concerned of who's the co-chair of this program. You haven't mentioned his name yet, but I will. It's ex-chief staff Rick Hillier. Rick Hillier is actually being referred by two legal experts to The Hague.
Okay, Professor, I'm gonna jump.
So this is definitely
hang on a second.
Hang on. The idea of imperialism.
Okay, listen. Wait a minute. You're not going to get away with that on this program without backing it up with facts. Nobody gets called a criminal on this program unless there is hard evidence to that effect. So I'm going to move on. I want you to stay there. I'm perplexed as to why you will not talk about the context of your letter and what you have said in your letter. You don't seem to have the courage of your convictions when it comes to talking about what you put down in print. But let me go to Calgary, where Kevin Reed is standing by. He's the executive director of Project Hero. Mr. Reed, what is your sense of the objections of these professors? Do you think that they have a point? Is there something that we should be thinking about in terms of what they have said?
Yeah, good afternoon, Tom. Well, Project Hero was started, for real simple reasons, which was to provide support to the military families, in particular children of these families when a spouse doesn't return from a theater of operation. And that theater of operation just isn't combat. We have a number of Canadian Forces troops around the world on peacekeeping. So it embraces all forms of theater of operation. And the good news about what we do here, or about our country, is that we get freedom of speech and people are entitled to their opinions. So this is the first time we've had a pushback. We've got some 70, 80 schools who are supporting Project Hero. So we're go ahead.
No, I just want you to give me quickly a scope of how many universities in Canada have signed up for this. And if you could deal just with Professor Hunter's complaint that there already is some sort of program in effect and this is a duplication of services.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's approximately 70 to 80 colleges and universities who have either announced their commitment to support Project Hero or are about to announce. So we've got a lot of momentum right across the country. As far as the professor's concern on the project, another program supporting it, that could very well be. But I do know that the Canadian Forces men and women and families are fully supportive of Project Hero and very grateful that great schools like the University of Regina have chosen to support this program, because it's not about any politics. It's about the children of deceased soldiers. So, I want us to stay focused on that, because there's nothing political about Project Hero.
Yeah, and just before I go back to the professor for a second, have you projected in your business plan how many children this may affect, say, in the next 10 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately there's north of 100 children who have lost a family member in the theater of operation, and they range from newborn up to children who in fact are in school today, and to the most recent information I've got. We've got some 4 students who are participating in Project Hero. The first one was a recipient this past fall at Algonquin College on the Pembroke campus.
Okay. Let me just go back to Garson Hunter, professor at the University of Regina. I'll try this one more time. Could you explain why it is that you feel that there is Canadian imperialism and why educating children of deceased soldiers is somehow a negative thing?
What I'm saying is that Project Hero is not what it claims to be. These things are already covered for under Canadian legislation. When it's mentioned about peacekeeping, I don't know of any current peacekeeping operations that are equivalent to what's going on there. In fact, the legislation that covers people whether they're killed in active action or not. I get a little bit annoyed when people bring up peacekeeping. I brought him along, happened to be an ex-private in the Canadian Armed Forces. I have a Canadian Peacekeeping Service Medal, and I also have a United Nations Peacekeeping Medal from Cyprus. I get a little bit annoyed when I see people misusing military personnel. What military personnel need right now is the ones coming back are things to deal with post-traumatic stress syndrome. They need things to deal with anger management.
Okay,
they need
you know
things
what,
to deal with
Professor,
suicide.
you're way off on a different lecture right now.
No,
I've given you every opportunity to address
Project Hero. Why not call it Project Rebuilding or Project Healing?
You know what? I've given you every opportunity to address the convictions that you had in that letter.
People killed in active service when we already have a program that covers those
hang on
people.
a second.
What are we doing in Afghanistan?
You're done. You're done, Professor. Thank you very much. I've given you every opportunity to talk about your convictions and have the courage of your convictions, and you've avoided it every single time.
And I certainly did.
But nevertheless, this is a very, you can tell, this is a very spirited discussion in the country. Kevin Reed, the Executive Director of Project Hero, I appreciate your time today to talk about it. And Professor Professor Garson Hunter, I appreciate you coming in. I wish we could have had a fuller discussion on the issue, but thank you both very much and have a good weekend.